Hello, everyone. Judy May Murphy here. Excellent. Lovely to see so many of you on the call tonight. The reason that we're doing this call is because it's the beginning of January, and for so many people, the resolution that they've made, the decision they've made, the promise they've made to themselves is that this year they're going to have a massive breakthrough in money. Now, already I can see on this call that we have some people who are at the absolute beginner stages, who, you're making sort of minimum wage and you're looking to get to something where you feel very comfortable. We have some people on this call who are already very comfortable and they're looking to go even bigger. And we have a couple of people I can see, hi, you know who you are, who are mega wealthy. And that's the reason why they're mega wealthy, is because they always gather more information. And by mega wealthy, I mean sort of, upwards of a few million per year. So we are going to be talking about money for the next hour or so, and we're going to be talking about it from a very, very human place. I often find with people in my industry, with my colleagues who do a really great job in lots of ways, that the conversation immediately kicks off from a place of everybody trying to jostle for position, everybody trying to, either feel they've got to excuse and apologize for where they're at, or feeling that they've got to show off how much they have or whatever. So let's just start from the idea that it doesn't actually matter right now. Let's just have it that it doesn't matter how much you have, and you're going to make way more. Because the tightness that we go into any situation with really decides the outcome. Imagine you're going on a first date and you go in and you're really just super, super tight, and you stay like really tight and anxious for the entire date. Chances are the thing that you feared most is going to come to pass. The person isn't going to get to see the best you. They're going to get to see a very anxious ridden version of you, and they're not going to fancy you, right? And you're not going to have a good time. So nothing will have worked out. However, you go in and you're kind of nervous. You like this person. You want this to go really well. But then they make you laugh, or you make yourself laugh, and you relax. And things go much, much better. But just from the off, so many people are trying to make money from a place of anxiety, from a place of shame, a place of concern. Even before anything's happened, they're concerned that nothing's happened. And this is really, really huge, because this is what decides what your brain allows you to do every day. So let's imagine that you are making 10 sales calls this morning. Just suppose you've got a business, you've got to make 10 sales calls. And you're going in from a place of, you know what? If I don't even get one sale, it's okay, because I will have learned something. I will have learned how to talk about money, or I would have learned how to talk about my product. I would have learned how to talk about, how to meet them there. I would have just learned, maybe there's something about my voice. I will consciously or unconsciously learn something, and you just relax and you make your calls. Well, then you're probably going to learn something, and you might surprise yourself and you might get a result. But a lot of people go into something like making sales calls from a place that is so defended that they're not magnetic. They're not magnetic to the other person. And people, they buy what they need, but more than that, they buy what they want. Why is it that you hear about people, they can't pay the rent because they've spent so much on pizza? That's because in the moment, just kind of like feeling better, kind of solving the pain of the day, distracting yourself, is much, much stronger than an idea of, but I need to pay the rent in 1 week's time. Anything that's further off and isn't going to bring you real bodily pleasure, whether that's some kind of escape, some kind of taste, some kind of thing you're addicted to, some kind of idea, some kind of like identity thing that you are craving. If you have an idea that you're the person who always gets the newest iPhone, and you're going to be pulled towards doing that, even if it would be better if you use that money to employ someone part-time, an extra person in your business, for example, right? So the first thing we've got to acknowledge is that our feelings are running the show when it comes to money and everything else, but we're purely focusing on money. So when it comes to money, your feelings are running the show. That means that those who are more attuned with their feelings, more in touch with their feelings, are actually either better or worse at making money. I'm going to say that again. Those who are in touch with their feelings are either usually way better or way worse at making money. Because if they have it set up inside them that they get absolute pleasure and they can feel that pleasure, as I say, feelings are a physical reality in your body. And if you are awake to that, oh, this feels great. And that happens every time you make money, well, what are you going to do? You're going to just keep making more money. That's what we call the branch of psychology that's about. It's called behaviorism. It's like this guy called B.F. Skinner in the 1950s. He put his little rats rather, and pigeons in cages, and he stimulated them. And so every time they would either peck at or paw at a little lever and get food, the dopamine pathways in the brain would just light up, and they'd be like, yeah, this feels so good. This feels so good. And they got to the point where they found the place in the brain where this happened, and they could make it that not even giving a reward like food, but just purely giving that hit to the brain, as we provide to ourselves with things like either iPhones or TV or certain kinds of conversations or certain kinds of daydreams or anything at all, we can provide that same pleasure hit to our systems. And what they found was that the rats and the pigeons would actually, I think it was rats by the time it got to that point, the rats would keep pressing that little lever or lever, if you're European, they keep pressing that little lever until they died, because they would ignore food. They wouldn't go for the food. They just want to keep getting this pleasure hit, right? So if hitting that button is giving you the pleasure of food or money in this case, right? If it's giving you, if the pleasure is giving you food, then you're all set. You get to feel great and you get a lot of food. However, if the lever that you're pressing gives you a good feeling, but it doesn't feed you, eventually you starve to death. And that's what happened to those rats. Now, we are living in societies where, we are a little bit more supported than that. And people who do get addicted, there's a way to find food as well. But you can see the point that what you want to do is you want to get addicted to making money, all the parts of making money that feel good to you. As you know, I coach a lot of speakers and coaches, and a lot of them are addicted to the coaching part or addicted to the speaking part, but then they are just completely pulling away from the part that is about sending out an invoice, having a conversation about money, setting up payment systems, sending out MailChimps, all that kind of stuff. They just really, really don't like it. And often there's like just a few sticking points. There's a few little areas that when those can get changed around and reconditioned in your brain, then you're good to go. You get as much food as you want, right? So that's what we got to realize, is that this is an inside game. This is a game about giving ourselves pleasure, right? Pleasuring your way to money. That will not be the title of the next book, but it's just so vital. It is so vital because that's how it works. That's how it works. So this idea of just pushing and pushing and pushing, if you've got a speaker up on stage and they say, you got to just keep working, you got to keep working, you got to keep pushing, and then you make that money, well, they can keep pushing and they can keep just toughing it out. Why? Because they get a pleasure signal from toughing it out. They get a pleasure signal. So if you have someone who's saying to you something like, you got to just not care what anyone thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't need anybody. I don't care. I just go for it. It's all about the mission. Well, you know what? They can say that because they don't get any pleasure from making people happy. They don't get any pleasure from making sure everyone's okay. They don't get any pleasure. They might even get pleasure from people being annoyed with them. That might, like when they were a kid, the only time that they knew they were alive was when they got yelled at by their narcissistic dad, and then they went on to become a narcissist, and now, anytime they get to do some yelling and they get that face back that they used to give to their dad, they get a hit of pleasure. So you can see how usually the way money is taught is the way that the particular person who's teaching it gets the pleasure. And very rarely are those people who are overly conscientious, really, really sensitive, really creative, highly intelligent academically. Like, so the messages that we get about what we need to do to make money are wrong, because if we do it in that way, we don't get pleasure. Now, it doesn't mean that there's an exact perfect match. And a lot of people then are attracted to doing it, making money in ways that just won't hurt as bad. Hence the big craze over the last few years for people who aren't about systems, aren't about mechanics, but they want to set something up online that's automatic. They don't get a huge buzz out of something being automatic. They don't love to see a little product rolling along that trolley and suddenly, that you reach out to 100,000 people and suddenly you get 10 sales from those 100,000 people. A few people get a pleasure hit from that, but most people who are trying to work those kinds of systems don't get a pleasure hit from that. They just get to avoid the pain of conversations because they've been having the wrong kind of conversations. So hopefully this is starting to make sense, just how much of an inside job this is. So let's look at pretty much anybody that ever comes on a call with me, if you're still here. Some people, as soon as you start talking about feelings, they're just off, they're flying, and I'm just always like, okay, you were in the wrong room. But everyone who's still here, you are very caring. And I don't mean that in a sort of buttering you up kind of way. I mean, that's part of your makeup, is that you are very empathetic. You truly care. You truly want for everybody to feel good. The challenge with that is this, that your conscience doesn't live in your brain. Your conscience lives in your gut. It's a gut feeling. It's a visceral feeling. It's a feeling that is in your body. It's not just in the gut, but for most people, it's kind of concentrated around there. Like your stomach doesn't feel good. And it's sort of like because the more kind of artistic or sensitive or empathetic you are, the faster you feel the tiniest tug at you, the tiniest of tug. So let's imagine we've got someone. We'll call him Mr. B. Okay, so Mr. B comes. It's not based on anybody, but Mr. B is not like you. Mr. B is not conscientious, and he doesn't really care. He really is so self-focused, and he really is quite emotionally numb. He doesn't have high EQ. He doesn't have a good sense of other people, other cultures, what other people need. He's got what we call cold empathy. He just does not get it, right? So those of you who trained with me before, we're talking about the classic narcissist. And then you've got you, right? And the same scenario happens to both of you in business. So there's someone standing there and they are confused about whether or not they want to buy cupcakes from you. So you're selling 100 cupcakes and the customer is kind of doing a thinking process. You sort of said, hey, yeah, you get 100 cupcakes for only $400. Normally, if you bought them all individually, they'd be like $6.50 each, but you're getting this massive discount. They're all fresh, and you can just build them up and you can make an entire wedding cake out of these cupcakes for $400. Now, the person in front of you has to do some processing because everything involves a little bit of processing. And so they start to think. They're thinking, I wonder then, can I get cupcakes to fit in with my color scheme for my wedding? Or I wonder if, that will work. I wonder if the cupcakes come covered in paper or not, because that wouldn't look so good. And they're really just processing. That's all they're doing. And the mistake that that Mr. B is going to make is he might lose the sale because he might not see someone's processing. He might see them as just dilly-dallying, as just being indecisive. And he would never himself want to be indecisive. So he challenges and he says, come on, make your mind up now. I've got other customers waiting. And that works because the person then, there's scarcity created. And the person's like, oh my gosh, I might lose these cupcakes because I might not have a wedding cake. I might have to go for a boring one. Okay, yes, we'll do it. Or he might just keep asking. You might just sort of say, oh, well, come on, like, why would you not? You might ask the right questions, and then they might say, oh, I was just wondering if there's going to be paper around them. Oh, there doesn't have to be. Okay, the question's answered. But he kind of like just stays pushing, 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 and asking these questions. Someone who either, like, I got to put this in there as well, because there are some people who are really good at business, and they're able to kind of just switch off their sensitivity, if you like, and just go into business mode. And they can make statements like, well, no, I'm doing business now. It's not the same thing, the same rules don't apply. I'm doing business. So those of you that can do that, that's awesome. But most of you on this call can't do that. And that's like what I'm going to be teaching a big money course, and it's for you. It's for people who, you know, you just feel bad. You feel bad around money. So you're there in front of the customer, they're processing, and you sort of see anxiety on their face, and more than you want the sale, you want to solve their anxiety, because you have had a whole lifetime of learning that solving other people's anxiety allows you to feel good. You have very little experience that says, very few references that say solving, you know, making the sale makes you feel good. So what's going to win out? What's going to win out is you're going to go for making the other person feel okay. And you're going to jump in there and you're going to over reassure. You're going to say something like, well, listen, yeah, go and talk to your fiance and then come back to me and it'll be okay. You know, you're thinking about helping them have a lovely wedding. And so you don't create any scarcity. So they are never taken to the point of discomfort where they have to make a decision. Equally then, you know, you'll see something flash across their face that might be something like, gosh, where am I going to get the money from? But you know what? You don't help them by solving that problem for them. That problem is theirs to solve. Finding out where we get the money for the next step up, for the next thing happening in our lives, is a great gift. It's part of our growth. We can't grow and live fabulous lives without it. And if you try and save someone from the mild temporary discomfort of that, then it's going to become ongoing discomfort, because they're going to stay there. They're going to stay not advancing and not paying for things. But so you jump in and you just say, oh, what's the problem? And then you end up giving such a deep discount that your business doesn't do anything. You end up taking it down to, you know, you're pretty much working for free, or you're at least working for minimum wage, and your business then doesn't grow. Why doesn't it grow? Because you're being rewarded with good feeling. You're being rewarded with these feelings of, okay, I got to do this, and it's magical and it's great. You know, you got to help these people have a lovely wedding with this really unique cupcake cake, right? But that then has its limitations. So you're over there pressing the people pleaser lever, and the food lever is somewhere else. And then you're like, oh, hang on, I got to go over here. And maybe you've got it, so you've combined it. So you get a tiny bit of food, just enough to survive, but then you also get to make everybody happy and everybody pleased around you. And maybe it's not the people pleasing that is the reward that you take instead of money. Perhaps the reward that you take is something like feeling clever. Like a lot of highly academic people, and I know a lot of them, like a lot of friends of mine are professors, and you know, some of them really struggle because academic salaries aren't that high, and they used to, you know, back in the day, you used to get free rooms in the university, but now they use those rooms for students because they are trying to make more money. So there's a lot of people who get rewarded just with feeling smart and learning. A lot of coaches who come to me, they're getting rewarded purely in the easy feel good stuff of a combination of learning and preparing materials, you know, just being creative. A lot of artists, they'll just go off and be creative. They'll write 100 songs, put 100 songs up on SoundCloud or whatever, but they won't make the one phone call to the A&R guy saying, hey, come and see me play in this pub, right? Because we keep going for what we know. We keep going for the thing that we know for sure. We have certainty that this thing is going to make us feel at least good enough. And what we're usually told at events is we're usually told, oh, you've got wealth wounds. But so what is a wealth wound? Just to explain it for those of you who don't know. So a wealth wound is an idea of, let's imagine you and your sister grew up in a house, and you had a dad who was always complaining about money. And then you had a mom who was always overspending money, right? And so a wealth wound would be, you know, you grew up and you had so much pain about your dad being so stingy that you became like your mom and you're overspending. Or you could do it the other way around, that you saw that your mom's overspending, you associated that with the reason that your dad was so uptight about money, and so you said, right, I'm not going to give anyone a reason to be uptight around money, so I'm going to be really careful around money. So maybe you became overly cautious around money, and you kept yourself small by, you know, penny pinching and not spending and not keeping that flow. The flow is so important. We're going to talk about that next, but in a way you possibly haven't heard before. But that is a wealth wound. It's you know, something that hurt you in childhood, and then you tried to defend around that later on in life with your own money habits. But the thing about wealth wounds is a lot of them are very straightforward, and they lead to very straightforward behaviors. So they're actually quite fixable. So it's very quick to sort of say, oh yeah, I became like my mom, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to put a budget in place. The things where you trip yourself up unconsciously around money are other wounds that you then apply to money. So let's imagine that you grew up, because this is why I started thinking about this, because I had people who said, I don't see where my wealth wounds are. Like my family's always made really good money, my grandparents made really good money, like I'm the first person in my family to have a problem with money. Okay, so what's going on here? This particular person, the thing was that she just didn't feel seen and heard. She felt like her opinion wasn't respected. And so what she did was she went off and she became a biochemist. And she went and just kept getting PhDs and all these different things, because she felt like what was missing in her childhood was being respected and being listened to at the family's dinner table. And so she knew how to make money, and she didn't have wealth wounds, but just a wound that said, I am not heard and I'm not respected, led to her behaving in a way that made it really hard for her to make money. And once she saw that, she was able then to say, okay, now I know what to do. And her biochemistry background enabled to set her to set up this incredible company. And she was like just like flying financially in the shortest amount of time, because it wasn't a wealth wound. So if a coach always presumes that your money problems are wealth wounds, you might like to explain to them that that's one aspect of it, but in fact there are lots of other things going on, and that's what we need to learn about ourselves. That's why, you know, we constantly need to, there's always more. And for a lot of you who've plateaued with your money, you might have plateaued at a very low place, you might have plateaued at a great place, you might have plateaued at an extraordinary place, but you're probably on this call because you have plateaued in some way. And it's because more needs to be done. And like so many of people who've worked with me for years, they sort of say, oh my God, I can't believe there's more. Yeah, there will always be more. And we just got to celebrate that and just keep doing it if we, you know, in order to keep growing and learning and loving. Alrighty, let me just have a little look at my my list here, because we're almost halfway through. I want to make sure that we get everything done. I just want to like really land on the key points so that you can start to really breathe and get excited about what's possible for you this year with money, knowing that it's not your fault. I'm going to say that again. Where you're at with money today, it is not your fault. You are not lazy, you're not stupid, you're not like a spendthrift. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It is your responsibility to work out what's going on and fix it. And you don't have to. I always say this to people when they're so uptight about money. I'm like, you don't have to earn any money. Like, you live in a country where you can just walk into a supermarket and there's going to be enough freebies being handed out, and you can walk into like you will not fall through the gaps. You don't have to earn another penny more than you have. You can earn way less and still be okay, still be alive, and still live an amazing life. But you've just decided that you would like more. Cool. Let's do that, right? So let's just like really give ourselves a break here and just loosen it all out. And also we can do the thing of comparing ourselves to other people in order to be able to breathe. Because remember, you know, that hook that's in our belly. Oh, sorry, just to round out another thought that I don't think I quite completed. So basically, with Mr. B, when he's there, you know, just kind of pushing for the money and getting the money more often than we are, then what's happened with us is those little messages that we pick up on, that less sensitive people don't pick up on, we can allow them to make us stop and say, hold on, there's something going on here, something that I have to fix. And so we do too much. It's not that we're doing too little in our money making, it's that we're doing too much in the money moments. Those money making moments, we are trying to make it okay for us, trying to make it okay for them, and are you okay with this? Like, we're having kind of a lover's quarrel rather than a straight sales talk. And that's what we need to guard against, right? That's what we need to at least become aware around. And then how do we stay lovely and also allow the process to happen and allow people to be a little bit uncomfortable, because growth is discomfort. Anytime I say to someone, okay, it's 2,300 euros to work with me for 3 hours, I just sit and I just listen to the discomfort and I just watch them squirm and I just smile. I'll go, that's a lot, isn't it? And they'll go, yes, it is. And I'll go, and it's because 2,300 euros is a lot. That's why you need to do the coaching. And, you know, a lot of the time they'll get that, but I can now not rescue them from that pain. And I can let them just sit in it. And I can let them say something like, yeah, wow, I bet you don't even know how you're going to start to find that. And just sit with them as they are uncomfortable and not feel like I have to fix it or over reassure or anything like that. And that was a long time coming. That was a long time coming, being able to treat other people like adults who had the right to grow as well. And I learned a lot of it from people doing that with me, doing that with things like courses, doing that with like amazing designer dresses. I remember this one lady when I bought like a designer outfit that was, it was, just to say, it was a lot. I think it was around 900 quid, and that was more than I'd ever spent on a dress. I'd got myself comfortably up to like 400 or 500, but suddenly 900 for a dress, ooh. And I was in that kind of place. And she just looked at me. She goes, you haven't taken it off yet. I was like, yeah, good point. Yeah. I ended up with the dress and ended up growing into that next place where you needed to do the things and live the kind of life where you wouldn't pass out at spending 900 quid on a dress, right? That doesn't mean I always spend 900 quid on a dress, but now I just buy the dresses that I like. And that actually, I think J.K. Rowling said the same thing, like, what's the best thing about not being broke and poor anymore? It's like, well, the outfits, being able to wear what you want. Alrighty, so next thing we want to look at, I have a feeling that there's something I was about to say and I'm missing it out, but hopefully I'll catch it again. There's just so much in this, So the next thing I want you to look at is the fact that you are not the same person all the time. You're not the same person all the time, because a lot of you, your problem is inconsistency. So one week you might earn a ton of money, or one day you'll earn a ton of money, and then suddenly for the next few weeks you earn nothing, and then you go back and you earn more, and it's very, very confusing. Or you make really good deals on one day and not good deals on the other. And that's because different parts of you are winning out on those different days. So you have to start to learn how to money map exactly what your successes look like psychologically. Like, what is happening in your brain when you make a lot of money? What is happening with you physiologically? What are the outside factors? Where, what's happening with the people who are nearest and dearest to you? Something as simple as, what kind of movie have you watched the night before? Like, all these things, all these different factors prime you for either being at your best money-wise or at your worst money-wise. And there's a huge difference between those two, as you know. Your worst might be bringing in 1,000 a day. Your best might be bringing in 1,000 a day. Your best might be hoping for bringing in 1,000 a day. It's like, wherever at, it's okay. But I just want you to acknowledge that there's a bandwidth. And that, whenever you need to, have to, or even more importantly, want to, like, crave making money, you do it. So the key is to get you to be craving it on a much, much more consistent basis. Can you see how important that is? Because a lot of the people who make really big money in this world, they're quite boring. And they need to be. It's their boringness that has allowed them to accumulate this much wealth, because they can show up consistently. But those of us who are, entertaining, interesting, fascinated, fascinating. Like, we have to kind of turn our money selves on. And the one that we usually switch on is the one that is panicked and doesn't feel good. And that is not going to work. We can't have them showing up, because you know why? They're the ones that get sick. And again, this is so linked to the body. That's why you get sick. You know that, you feel that, those colds, those flus, those for me, it starts in my back, it travels all the way up my back. It's pure acid held there. I even when I used to do tango, or even before that, when I remember doing this really great week of tango ballroom dance training with Ian Waite from Strictly Come Dancing, and he was my trainer for a week. We hired out the Kensington Ballroom. It was just the two of us. It was amazing. But he could not get over how clicky my back was, and that was in 2005. And now I use my back as a little barometer. And if I kind of roll my shoulders and I can hear something click, I need to do things very differently, because I'm using will and push, and I'm, cortisol's being pumped out, and I'm not looking after me. And if I hadn't learned to look out for those signs, I probably would have ended up, creating not good things in my body, because a lot of people are making money, but at the same time they're making money, they are building bodies that won't be able to keep going, bodies that are going to break down, bodies that are going to rebel or overcompensate in some way. So that's another thing, because people say, your health is your wealth. Well, what I'd like to say is you get both. You don't, once you understand this, you don't have to choose one or the other. And that, I used to be able to work for about 3 hours a day, and then I would just be a mess if I worked any further than that. That's why I read so much in my 20s, because unless it was like the most boring job, unless it was just a job where I just had to react. I could teach jazz ballet to 7-year-olds blindfolded, right? So I did a lot of that. But anything that was actually, me writing my books, me running my theater company, me doing all those things I did in my 20s, I couldn't have long rehearsals. I couldn't have long discussions with people about money. I just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. And it was simply because I was pumping out way too much cortisol, stress hormone, long-term stress hormone, and too much adrenaline, and overstimulating myself. And it was just a big old mess. And so we've got to learn how to be really calm and unstimulated while getting all the work done and getting all the money in, so that you're not having to recover. What happens with a lot of people who work really hard making money and are very successful at it, they pound back those martinis and whiskeys come 6 o'clock. And then in their career, they start 6 o'clock, becomes 5 o'clock, becomes 4 o'clock, becomes lunchtime. And I see that time and again with people I hang out with, not the people who are my friends, but the people like the places that we are. You just see people who are just doing that to try and re-regulate their body. And the trick is, and it's something that me and my friends have looked into, is just not looked into, we've trained ourselves into, is just how to do that, how to keep yourself on an absolutely even keel, without having to resort to something like alcohol or drugs to do that for you. And in Hollywood, the drug scene is huge, because people are doing things that are huge, and they haven't worked out how to do it in a way that their body can cope. So they overly push their body. And a lot of you are doing that, maybe not in as dramatic a way, maybe not with a promise of an Emmy or an Oscar at the end of it, but you're doing the same thing. And that's what we need to not do anymore. The next thing then is, let's look at the fact that you have an identity for yourself. And if you're having to juggle your identities, if your identity isn't cohesive, then you're skipping around a lot. And a lot of you skip around so much that you even skip around to different products and different identities for yourself. I'm a this, I'm a teacher. No, I'm not. I'm a coach. No, I'm not. I'm a Reiki therapist. No, I'm not. I'm a seller of this product. No, I'm not. I work in this company for this corporation, and you're just kind of skipping around so much. And what you're believing is that you're skipping around so much because you're trying to get aligned with the opportunities that are external to you, the opportunities that are out there in the world. But that's not actually what's going on. What's actually going on is you're skipping around as your internal identities are misaligned. So you haven't got it all in one. You need to have it that everything is the same. I'm completely aligned about being a creative writer, about being a coach and someone who really goes deep and fixes things with people in this lifetime, and being a speaker, and making lots of money, and having this fabulous lifestyle, and hanging out in poetry evenings, and all of that is absolutely aligned. And it wasn't for the longest time. For the longest time, all those things were different. You know, the creative part, the helpful part, the part that was doing stuff for me, the part that was doing stuff for people, they're all sitting in different corners. And it was suddenly when you know, I was able to bring it together under one identity, that's when things started to really, really take off. Because I was able to have conversations that would say to people, yeah, you know what, you're really only going to benefit if you pay for this. Rather than all the freebies I used to give out thinking, oh, people just don't have any money. I wouldn't be doing them any favor, but I would see myself like, really my biggest identity for myself was rescuer. I'm no longer a rescuer. It's not my business to rescue anybody, right? But I saw myself as that for years. And so I was really doing people a huge disservice. But once I saw that, oh, I don't want to be a rescuer. I want to provide service. I want to be like one of the most useful people on the planet. That's my aim for myself, is to be one of the most useful people on the planet, to really bring things in a very, very new way that I'm so unique, only I can do this, but from a place of, wow, never thought of that before. And then other people can go out and teach what I've come up with. But having that aligned to money, saying, you know what, that is only going to happen when I can ask for money in a consistent way. That there was other identities. How can I be a dutiful daughter? How can I, once I realized, wow, it's really going to upset my dad. It really does upset my dad that I do better than my siblings. So how am I going to be a loving, dutiful daughter, a good, good girl? Because it's, in all of us, there's these little characters that were set up long, long time ago. How am I going to be a good girl and make money? That was unconscious for years. And all these things need to be brought to the surface and spoken to. And that's something on the Mega Money Tribe is what we're calling this, because it really is just so focused on money and so focused on